once the paragons of their people, champions who fell honorably in battle, only to be dragged back into the world by the scourge. Their souls were bound, wills erased. They were left with only obedience and hate. In this state, they reveled in slaughter, cutting down former friends and allies without pause. When the Lich King's dominion faded, freedom arrived with a flood of horrific memories. Every scream, every betrayal, every blade driven into familiar flesh, crashing back upon them. Now traitors twice over, they walk the world as pariahs, clad in black steel. They seek atonement, knowing they will forever be monsters, wearing the faces of fallen heroes. 1,000 atrocities are etched into the eyes of each Death Knight. Any foe unfortunate enough to gaze into them will feel all warmth pulled away, as if by the very clutch of death itself. Frost, blood, and unholy form the triumvirate of power that shapes the Death Knight. Each mastery forged in torment and perfected through discipline. Frost is the domain of icy precision and emotionless lethality. Frost Knights channel the wicked chill of Northrend itself, their freezing blades sheathed in rime, their strikes sharp and surgical. They fight with a chilled demeanor to expose weakness. Each strike is placed deliberately to inflict the most pain. Through a bleak calm, they employ a storm of force to cut enemies to the bone. To wield Frost is to embrace a calculated evil. It is an icy edge, veiled in blinding cold. They are tacticians of torture, freezing blood in veins before plunging steel in sinew. Blood is far more visceral, born from the corruption of the heart. Blood Knights use their unnatural vitality as both weapon and shield. They thicken tendons at will and reknit their own torn flesh. Every strike endured only strengthens the Blood Knight. Every wound suffered converted to hot fuel. They are juggernauts who refuse to fall, drinking in damage as sustenance, unwilling to falter, unable to die. They are dark guardians who manipulate life's very essence in the face of relentless onslaught. With pulsing hatred and collar deep, the Blood Knight cares little from where the blood flows, only that it flows at all. Finally, unholy is the rotting face of the scourge. They embody tainted life and necromantic dominance. Unholy knights marshal disease, wielding plague as chains to bind armies of the dead to their will. Their servants swarm, claw, and overwhelm as an extension of the Unholy Knight's malice. The Unholy Knight turns the ground into a churning mass of grasping limbs and gnashing teeth. Where they stride, the battlefield spills open its wounds, a tide of unstoppable death. The world was never meant to endure the Death Knight. They are without feeling, without warmth, and without the luxury of forgetting. The Death Knight is a shadow of a life extinguished, an echo of a soul stolen. They are a contorted reflection of a hero, shaped into service and unable to rest. They wander the world as unwelcome guardians, half legend, half warning, bearing rune blades that hum whispers of pilfered existence. Kingdoms bar their gates. Priests clutch their relics. Old comrades turn away. But the Death Knight continues, unsoftened by mercy, unburdened by fatigue, driven only by vengeance. They are wrath given form, regret given armor, and revenge given a sliver of redemption. Warlocks are practitioners of sorcery, whose ambition has eclipsed their caution. They delve into occult powers best left undisturbed, binding demons into service and wielding forbidden knowledge to drain the vitality from living things. The Warlock remains an uncomfortable yet recurrent necessity, a figure who can force open those doors which should remain closed. They arrive with tireless ranks of summoned labor, portals that rend the fabric of space and time, and keep the answers to problems so dark that more principled orders would sooner look away than solve. Their presence is seldom met with warmth, yet in drawn-out campaigns where progress has stalled and survival outweighs dignity, most companies learn to make their peace with the Warlock. The Affliction Warlock specializes in slow ruin. They drain life from their foes and spread curses that debilitate and corrupt. Agony and terror are the tools of the Affliction Warlock. They leave enemies withering where they stand, mortal coils slowly unraveled in their clutch. Their magic is parasitic and methodical, turning pain into power and victory into an inevitability. Those who run are fatigued. Those who scream are silenced. Where others strike to kill, the Affliction Warlock simply ensures nothing recovers. The Demonologist is the living embodiment of a necessary evil, arriving when the hour is late and all other options have run dry. They command horrors others would rather turn from than behold. Legions of imps answer their summons, bound to serve by a pact made in blood. The Voidwalker rends the veil between light and shadow, a controlled dose of nether, seeping through the cracks of reality. The Felguard sees combat as less a duel and more an invasion, unleashed upon those who cross the fine line which the Demonologist toes daily. The Succubus charms with one breath and lays a kiss of death with the next. And when all else fails, the Fell Hunter devours what remains. The Legion's forces are endless and terrifying to behold, but in the most desperate hour, there is a grim utility in those willing to fight darkness with something darker still. The Destruction Warlock is the master of havoc, incinerating enemies with bursts of fell fire and shadow. They hurl bolts with catastrophic force, immolating targets where they stand, and reducing clusters of foes to ash in a storm of embers. The Destruction Warlock revels in mayhem. Infernals fall from the sky in haphazard fashion, smashing those caught in the blast radius before crushing survivors beneath their bouldered frames. Fire and brimstone combust upwards in cataclysmic displays, unleashing the pits of hell into fonts of annihilation. Collateral damage is not an incidental side effect of the Destruction Warlock's powers. It is the intended goal. Warlocks are not trusted because they were never meant to be. But when all honorable methods fail and survival demands results, the Warlock remains. Druids tread the narrow pathway between nature and and civilization. They have pledged to defend both, even from one another. Druids choose adaptability as an adage. Each member of the Cenarian Order can be a healer, a predator, a guardian, or a caller of storms, shifting between responsibilities as is necessary. Guilds have long learned that if a role needs filled, their druid can probably handle it. And when the winds shift in battle, as they often do, the druid will simply shift with them. Balanced druids embody the harmony between sun and moon, carrying the natural cycle of darkness and light on their feathered shoulders. They take the visage of an owl beast, calling down crashing lunar magic from a distance, switching to stellar fire and burning stars as the gap from their enemies shrinks. In battle, they keep a careful rhythm, building cosmic momentum until the sky itself seems to collapse. To outsiders, it can look theatrical, an armored owl summoning pillars of light. But seasoned veterans understand. When the balanced druid channels their powers, the heavens themselves go to war. Feral druids abandon spellcasting for the savagery of tooth and claw. In the blink of an eye, they slip into the form of a prowling cat, stalking enemies with the same patience as an elder predator. Feral combat appears as a wild flurry, but in truth is a tactical equilibrium between precision and timing. Every pounce, rip, and rake is carefully chosen to bleed an opponent dry, sapping energy from foes as the feral druid manages their own. The feral combat style is often compared to the rogue, but instead of fiddling with trick boxes or locked doors, the druid opens the innards of their prey. Meanwhile, guardian druids take the form of massive bears, trading quiet subtlety for loud endurance. Where others rely on ramparts and fortifications, guardian druids themselves are the wall. Their thick hides shrug off punishment that would break even hardened warriors, while guttural roars pull enemies' attention away from more fragile allies. Guardians endure prolonged warfare, grinding down a sea of foes and even healing their own wounds mid-fight, should the situation become overwhelming. Lastly, restoration druids are the quiet lifeline of countless expeditions. Their healing does not arrive in sudden bursts, but in steady waves. Gentle magic spreads through allies like roots beneath the soil. Experienced adventurers know the comfort of seeing those soft green glows settle over a group. It means someone is watching the battlefield with patience rather than panic. A druid is rarely the loudest presence on the field of battle, but no matter what role is demanded of them, the wild predator, the ardent protector, the wise naturopath, the roiling storm, the druid answers the call. They are versatile, yet they are mavens. The druid is a disciplined master who did not choose one path through the wilds, but every path, all at once. To protect the innocent, to heal the sick and wounded, to vanquish sin. This is the call of the Paladin. Knights who confront the darkest of evils and shield the faithful. The light protects the Paladin and gives them strength, allowing them to aid their comrades and even restore life to the fallen. Those who pledge to the Holy Order spend much of their lives studying doctrine. Upon enlightenment, the Holy Paladin joins the front lines as both chaplain and combatant. Their knowledge and virtue imbue them with the power to grant blessings and revitalize other champions. If necessary, they will even lay down their lives, serving as a martyr for the greater good. The Paladins' tools of war lay bare their motivations. The protection class of Paladin grips a weapon in one hand as a deadly device for exacting swift judgment. Locked in the other is a shield, both a symbolic and literal barrier, sheltering good from evil. Stalwart and steadfast, the protection Paladin is an ardent defender, waging war as a means to guard those they care for. They consecrate the very ground upon which they battle, standing bright, a divine shelter against the endless dark. It is known that the Paladins' zeal can turn fanatical in their devotion. Some may even lose a piece of themselves in righteousness, becoming instruments of retribution against those who dare defy the hallowed laws of their order. Retribution Paladins are vengeful crusaders, striking down the wicked and purging the unfaithful. To the Retribution Paladin, the light burns as holy fire in their soul, unleashed to cleanse evil from the world as it does flesh from bone. Their resolution assures them that victory is inevitable, a predetermination, and they will fight to the end to ensure it so. Across every battlefield, chapel and shadowed frontier, the Paladin is the unbroken line between hope and despair. Whether they tend to the wounded, shield the innocent, or deliver a reckoning, each path converges on a single truth. The light is not a mere power. It is a promise. It is carried in every oath sworn, every blow struck, and every sacrifice made in the name of the greater good. When night gathers, and the torches sputter and fade to black, the light remains, a radiant beacon carried in the soul of the Paladin. Theramore Isle, also known as Theramore Keep, Theramore City, or simply Theramore, is a human port town located on a rocky island on the eastern fringe of Dustwallow Marsh. Prior to the Night Elf induction into the Alliance, Theramore was considered the Alliance's greatest martial presence in Kalimdor. During the Third War, as Dalaran's destruction became imminent, the High Mage Jaina Proudmoore took as many survivors of Lord Aran she could find to sail west to the forgotten shores of this strange new land. Initially, they were met with outright hostility from the native Night Elves, as well as the Horde, who had recently made landfall in these parts. But eventually, leaders of these three factions came together in the face of a greater threat than any of them could take on their own, the Burning Legion. The war to repel the demonic invasion has its own extensive history, but it is sufficient to say that the demons were driven back. In the aftermath, all surviving humans, dwarves, and high elves of Jaina's expedition settled along the coast of Dustwallow Marsh. Here, they erected the island citadel of Theramore to safeguard the ragtag remnants of the Lord Aran Alliance. But between the survivors in Theramore and orcs present in Durotar, a tension rose. Grand Admiral Dalen Proudmoore, Jaina's father, and the Alliance fleet commander held the city for a time. Still clinging to old hatreds, the elder Proudmoore started a brief but bloody war against the Horde. Aided by the far-off island nation of Kultiras, of which he was the de facto ruler, Proudmoore's army besieged the new Orcish homeland, attempting to rid the land of the Horde before it could take root. And while they managed to score several initial victories, making a landing along the shoreline, the Kultiran forces were subject to endless harassment by champions of the Horde. They were unhinged from the province of Tirgard, where supply lines evaporated into a fine mist, and the bulk of the army along with them. The fleet was swiftly recalled back to Theramore, where the Grand Admiral found his fortress now encircled in turn. The Horde had smashed through the blockade, ready to vengefully tear into the last vestige of Lordaeron. It was Jaina Proudmoore, ever the pragmatist, who attempted to facilitate a peace between the Alliance and Horde. But it was Dalen who refused. The ensuing skirmish towards his command post was rapid and merciless, and the war was ultimately ended by Dalen Proudmoore's demise. Today, Theramore Isle is still the home of Jaina Proudmoore, and she remains in command of the Alliance expedition. Despite Jaina's efforts, some within Theramore continue to harbor ill intent upon the Orcs. Even years after the conflict with Durotar, many within Theramore's ranks claim loyalty to Dalen Proudmoore's cause, or wish to settle scores from the old world and continent they left behind. However, the vast majority of Theramore's inhabitants are deeply loyal to the younger Proudmoore, and they wish to uphold the armistice with the Horde in the region. These are the refugees who crossed oceans to flee the plague of undeath, Magi who watched as their kingdoms disappeared overnight, or ancient heritage destroyed. They are veterans who fought against the Burning Legion at Mount Hyjal, standing side by side with the Orcs against an apocalypse. And they would do so again, should the world need them. Theramore is no longer an island. A bridge has been built, connecting worlds old and new. Each who crosses over makes a choice. They can bring what they choose, but they must leave the rest behind. The tide rolls and batters, but Theramore will not sink below. The sea wall is a threshold, a high watermark of camaraderie, refusing to be anchored by the past. Yet the sea remains tumultuous. Ships churn in the roil, turning exiles into founders, enemies into allies, and even family into foe. When wilds call, there are those who answer. Hunters leave the comfort of their homes, taming ferocious beasts across the world. Marksmen drop enemies in their tracks with flawless shots, turning to shoot while running at high speeds. The hunter is adaptable, able to wield almost any weapon in melee or range. When in peril, they slip away like ghosts through the trees, laying traps for their foes, or letting their pets take the reins. Among the most gifted hunters, there are the more barbaric and uncivilized specimens. From birth, they have felt at home in the feral tracks beyond the road and feel a profound bond with the creatures of the wild. They are beastmasters, drawn into the primal world, invigorated by its untamed nature. Violent predators are kin to the beastmaster. Whether in the thrill of the hunt or the heat of battle, beastmasters call forth a litany of vicious animals to overwhelm prey. Meanwhile, the marksman shrouds themselves from peril by perfecting weapons that are deadliest from a distance. The marksman is a ranger, unleashing missiles in a veritable storm to plunge into whomever or whatever dares near them. They saturate the battlefield with a relentless monsoon of pelting bolts, loosing a downpour of arrows, or drowning enemies in thunderous shots. Always in motion, marksmen strike as lightning, a pressure front battering all which comes near. And while all hunters answer the call of the wild, some serve as a reflection of its brutality. The survival hunter is defined by fierceness, They face the enemy eye to eye, abandoning ranged weapons for instruments of close-quarters combat. Survival hunters are instinctive and crafty on the prowl. They lay deceptive traps to see their enemies undone. To survive in the savage lands beyond civilization, one must first cast aside civility. Whether commanding beasts, raining death from afar, or standing blade to blade with their prey, hunters embody the wild in all its forms. They are the living weapons of the untamed reaches. Adaptable, relentless, and unforgiving. Where civilization falters and order breaks down, the hunter excels, proving that in a world ruled by tooth and claw, mastery belongs to those who move faster, strike harder, and never lose the trail.